Presentation is an update on notices and slips. Our alternate title is What Did They Do Now? Or How Much Can They Repeat from Previous Presentations and Still Pass It Off as a unique presentation?
And of course, last night when I said we had 96 slides, Christopher said,
if we are going to fire hose everyone with notices and slips, we might as well have a little fun doing it.
And so I am George Williams. I'm the NEKLS Catalog Coordinator at Northeast Kansas Library System.
I'm Christopher Brannon, the IT Coordinator for the Coeur Public Library. Oh, wait, wrong slide. Go for it.
When Christopher said he was going to have this slide, it kind of became a contest. Who can have the most slides? I immediately thought this is just a couple of mindless idiots who'll be the first against the wall when the revolution comes. So we've been doing this every other week since August of 2000, which is about 4 years now. And that's about 60 minutes worth of valuable information packed into only 4 years of videos. And so we're going to talk about notices and slips again. This is what we talked about last year. Last year it was me kind of ranting about how there wasn't good documentation for notices and slips. And if you want to see last year's video, there's a link to it. These slides will be available if you can manage to get through all 100 of them. These slides will be available after the conference, so you can find that link then. But first off, Christopher is going to talk about enhancements coming to notices and slips in 2311.
So yeah, we broke this down between the two upgrades. So if you're a Bywater customer, you'll be getting both 2311 and 2405. First, the enhancements in 2311, starting off with bug 32986, add the ability to generate custom slips for patrons. Some of that has been talked about, but basically if you go into your notices and slips, you will see this choice here for custom slips. And you can go into the print section. If you are in the right place, you go into the print section, you'll add your subject, and here's your custom information. I stole all this off the internet. So then you go into your, once you save that, if you go into your patron and you go into print, you will now see your new custom slip there, and it will populate that information. Go ahead and give you the information that you asked for that slip. So that is really, really handy.
Yeah, this one's pretty simple, but it's kind of convenient. I mean, the report here is just to give patrons a list of everything they have on hold. This patron probably doesn't really need a list because there's only one thing on there, right? But that's going to be cool because you can do what's on hold. I'm going to write a report to replace the account summary so that instead of being that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, it will be something that could be printed, the same information printed off receipt tape. So lots of good stuff there.
Yeah. So the next two bugs, 33547 and 34030, are for slips in the preservation module. So on this one, the preservation module is something fairly new, and I didn't understand it nearly as much as I do now that Kelly educated me just minutes ago. But this will add new slips. I didn't have a lot to say about it, but along with the new feature, new slips came along as well. And then we have 8838. This is really old. Digest option for hold notice. Now, Bywater customers, you will probably already have this.
No, I do.
In the special sauce that they put together for us. But this is actually officially released in this version. And over on the right-hand side of your patron messaging preferences, you'll see the new digest option over there. So you can now digest that. All right. 34136, add ability to render a report using a notice template. Jason talked about this earlier. If you have questions about that, ask Jason. We're going to pass that one off on him.
But you know, this morning, Jason said he would refer people to us, and so like Kelly and Jesse. I don't think anybody here is going to talk to us about this feature at all.
We did a video about it.
Yeah, we did a video about it, but what Jason did was just so much better than the crap we did, so.
But,
Go back.
so yeah, so in the notices and slips, you'll see that you can add templates for, reports down there at the bottom of the list. And again, the information that he provided, was very valuable, and along with the videos that we did, and I know Bywater, did their videos, excuse me, I think it was Monday Minutes. You, featured that as well, so, a lot of information out there, really good feature. I will say that, we have done a custom, and I think I mentioned this in the video too, we did a custom holds queue, and we were running this through, our access program because we had it laid out really nice. And with this feature, I've been able to replicate what I was doing in access. And so this cut out the whole program for us, which is really nice. This is a huge upgrade for koha. 34704 print templates are formatted incorrectly. The regex in the gather print notices, so where all the print notices were being dumped to be emailed, apparently was adding extra lines. And so this bug will fix that so that it renders correctly. And then 30287 notices using HTML.
What's that? Sorry.
Render differently notices.pl. In fact, I filed this bug on this one because it occurred to me, but now you can go. So when you go into a patron's account and notices, if you are rendering your notice with HTML, it was spacing everything apart because it was added this screen when you went to look at it in here. Was adding its own line breaks. And so if you had your own breaks, line breaks in your HTML, it was doubling those things up. So now this renders correctly.
I think this modal was assuming everything was written as a print notice with no HTML in it. So when you added the HTML, it would plug in all those line breaks and make the HTML look crazy.
All right, and then 23296 auto renewal notices. Notices does not.
Sorry, I admit that one was on purpose.
Auto renewal notice does not use library specific notices. So the auto renewal notice, if you were using these notices in your configuration for your library and you were trying to do it for a specific library, those weren't working, so now they will be.
Right. So now, actually, I'm gonna put up this, let me go to my computer because I've got the survey open on here. I'm gonna advance the survey to the next question for those of you that remember we had that survey link up there. So you should, if you go there now, you'll see the second question. Yeah, and if you weren't there before, there's the code to log into that to get access to that survey. But now we're jumping ahead to 2405 enhancement and fixes. And so the first part here is we've got 6 bugs that relate to 11 different templates. So all of these different templates in Koha 2405, the default notice is going to be rendered in template toolkit instead of the old Koha hungry alligators syntax.
I don't know how many of you were in Portsmouth last year, but when we did our presentation last year, we were kind of on a great fest about template toolkit. And a lot has changed since then.
Yeah, that was my big complaint is not long before our conference last year in Portsmouth, there had been movement on a bug to eliminate completely the hungry alligator syntax from the Koha notices and slips. And my complaint was that the hungry alligator syntax is something that we have just a small amount of documentation for. And we were going to get rid of all of that completely and switch everything over to template toolkit, which had even less documentation. And so that was my complaint, is that there was no documentation. But the community has done a lot since then, and they've started working on porting all of the existing templates. So how does this affect you if you're already using Koha, this porting issue? It doesn't. So if you install a brand new version of 2311, this is the default notice that gets installed in Koha. And if you install a brand new version of 2405, this is the exact same notice that's been ported over to Template Toolkit now. So it's going to have all of the template toolkit syntax. So let's say if you are already using Koha and you wanted to switch back to the default notice, this doesn't really impact you yet, because right now the only way you can get that new template toolkit notice into your system is to go to the Koha notices and slips library and go to the 2405 defaults and then find that notice and copy and paste it. But here's the cool news. In 2411, there will be a new, this is a 2411 preview. This has been pushed to master. And so I got this screenshot off of a sandbox. There'll be a button, any notice that has a default, there'll be a new view default button. And when you click that, it'll show you the default notice. And so you notice there that the one that's in this system just has the title in it, but the default had all of that information, title, author, copy.
Question, since you looked ahead on this, does it just copy wherever the cursor is, or is it replacing everything?
It's replacing everything in there.
Okay, so it's,
So it's just it's essentially a reset to default button. So it's going to reset back to what the default is without you having, if you want to go back to the default, you don't have to go to the wiki and copy and paste anymore. You can just go to the view default, copy to template, and it'll just plug it in there.
Which would be nice if the button actually did say reset, because right now it's, like the question I had, is it going to just stick it wherever the cursor is, or is it going to replace it completely and you're going to go click and oops?
Well, here, if you don't want it to completely erase everything, you go up and you hit the cancel button.
Yeah.
So, but that would be a good button file, is to go and say you want that copy to template to say reset. I'll leave that one up to you.
Okay.
But this will come in 2411, and anything that has a default notice in Koha will have that view default button. And so the next one, customize the formatted notices when they are printed. This one took me forever to figure out what's going on. So the reason for that is because the title of the bug and the release notes kind of differ. Because it starts out as we want a way to configure or format these notices when they're printed, and it becomes, let's find a new way to add CSS to the notices. And when I looked at the release notes, and it's like, let's find a new way to add CSS to the notices, my next thought was, well, we can already do that. But what this bug is going to do is there will be a format option in the accordion. And when you open that up, you can put your CSS in there.
And Jason touched on this a little bit.
Yeah. It came up in his talk. So, and so my thought there was, well, you can already add CSS to the notices. And when I read through the bug, there are a couple of developers, Marcel and Martin, said almost exactly the same thing. So why do we need this? Because you can go to notices CSS and slip CSS, and you can define a cascading style sheet somewhere, put it on the web, and then every time and then Koha goes out and grabs that CSS and puts it in all the notices and all the slips.
That's everything.
Yeah, it affects everything. But you can also, in an HTML notice, you can just put in a style tag and put all your CSS in there. So I thought, why is this necessary? And then this is the next search catalog logo. This is the first time I worked this out as just as all done in text, and it's all inline CSS. So there are already three options there are a bunch of options for adding CSS to notices. And then I thought about it, I thought, you know, if somebody's brand new, having that extra box there that says this is where you put your CSS is probably helpful. And then I read through and I found a note from Nick that said, well, it allows for easy setting of some styles with no CSS knowledge. And so it's okay. I probably won't use it, but it's there.
Options.
Yeah, it's more options. And this is what it looks like when you open that up. And there are 3 links there, headings, tables, and alt text. And if you click on those, it gives you a place to start with what CSS you want to use there. So that's headings, that's tables, and that's alt text. Now, there is something on here that is being reading a consortium that scares the hell out of me. And that's at the very bottom. It says apply format settings to all notices. So there's a little checkbox there. And so the reason that scares me is because I've been burnt in the past. This is the apply to all libraries buttons for consortium that I hate. This is how you can copy a close date in the calendar, and it's really easy to accidentally copy. So this is happening to me. We have a couple of libraries that are closed on Veterans Day, and the rest of them aren't. So there's like maybe 6 out of 50 libraries that are closed on Veterans Day, and one of them made all the libraries closed on Veterans Day. And so then I had to answer phone calls, you know, why are none of my things due on November 11th? This one happened in Idaho where somebody in a library with 4 circulation rules cloned their 4 circulation rules to a library that had 70 circulation rules. So that took a little bit of work.
Did you relabel that?
Yeah, I relabeled that. Let's accidentally clone our rules to a different library. That is disabled at NEKLS. And it became disabled when I was at Valnet. It became disabled at Valnet right after that happened. And then this one is, let's accidentally copy our entire calendar to a different library. I hate all of these. Yeah, they're all disabled at Next Search Catalog. And actually, Nick made the same comment there. I can see the utility for initial setup, but this seems a bit too powerful. So they did add a warning. When you check that checkbox and you go to hit save, it's going to give you a warning that this is going to overwrite all of the formatting for all of your notices that are in the language that you're currently working in.
I won't be hiding in that one.
Yeah, well, there is a permission. So if in order to do any of this stuff, you need to find notices permission. And there was some talk of adding some more granular position permissions, but that wasn't done in the initial go through. But this is what it's going to look like in our system because it's easy to hide that with CSS. And there is actually the CSS. But actually, don't copy off the screen because there's a typo in there. Go to the wiki, and there's a link and a QR code to get to that. But that CSS, I've already put it in the HTML and CSS library on the wiki. So more stuff. The to from information will be available in the patron notices tab.
By the way, we're more than halfway through our slides. Amazing.
Yeah, we're at 60. I told you this is going to be easy. It's just, yeah, we're going right through them. So.
I was going to break out in song earlier. Halfway there.
Yeah, we're more than halfway there. So when I did that keynote at the koha-US conference, it was a half hour long and I had 87 slides and I got through those in less than half. So just got to know what you're doing. So in the patrons sent notices tab, you will now see on the far right, there's a column there that will have the to in the front information.
I will note that looking through the bug, it looks like though you will not always see the from for some reason. Some notices for some reason it's not populating from in this particular case. So I'm not sure what the issue is around that. I mean, it's good. It's always good to know who it's going to, what address it was sent to, But it's always nice to know what address it came from too. So I'm hoping that they'll fix that in the future.
Came from too, that's kind of confusing.
Also,
There you go. The next one on here is the ability to send emails from the patron details page. This works in and fits in with the stuff that Jason showed and the stuff that Christopher showed in the 2311. I forget which book that was. But what this is when you go to the patron notices, when you're creating a new notice, you can choose patron custom message. And then you can go and you can define whatever kind of crazy message you want in the templates, and give it a code, give it a name. And when you go to the patrons checkout or details page, under add message, you'll now have an option for email. And when you save that, it populates a message, an email, and sends it to the patron. This was on my test system, so I couldn't actually send it because we have that disabled.
before you move on, I'm noticing too that in your pending that those fields aren't filled out. So I'm curious as to why they chose not to.
So that's a trick with even if you have the email disabled on your test server, it'll still send a password reset.
No, so I'm talking about on your umbrella thing.
Yeah, that's why those three below it are the pending ones won't have the from to from, but the ones that are sent will have the to from. So the reason the top one doesn't have any information in the delivery note is because it's still pending.
Okay.
But that's a secret. If you have your email disabled, you can still send a password reset in Koha.
Okay.
Or at least you can on my test system. And I hope nobody from Bywater is going, oh, I know what that is. I'm going to fix it, because I don't want to fix it. It's kind of convenient.
I'll fix it for you.
Oh, thanks. That's what I get for making rude comments during her presentation, isn't it? So. The next bug that's going to be fixed in 2405 is sending notices to several email addresses. So right now, you can tell Koha, send to the primary email address, and if it fails, then send to the secondary. Now, in the new version in 2405, if you set email field primary to selected addresses, and then the email field selection will now have those three checkboxes. And so you can tell Koha every time it sends one of those emails, it's going to go to all three of those.
I could be mistaken too. I can't remember if that feature relies on a plugin for multiple selections.
That I don't know.
Mine, I'm not sure. No, you don't think so? Okay, I'm just mentioning these things.
Kelly's shaking her head, so obviously you're wrong.
I am. Thank you for setting me straight, Kelly.
Right here for.
And then add a fallback for the welcome message. So right now, if you add a new patron, you've got the welcome message configured to send by email, but the patron doesn't have an email address, nothing happens. No notice is generated, no notice is sent. But if you copy your welcome email information to the print tab, then it will now generate a print notice that I would assume comes the same way as the overdue notices when there's no email address. I didn't check on that. I didn't have time to check on that because I was too busy adding slides. So, all right. And then finally, for enhancements for 2405, this one is deep in the code. It's for troubleshooting. I will find it useful. But it's going to embed the letter ID and the template ID into the header of the message.
I can rest easier now.
Yeah. We're all going to sleep better tonight, aren't we? So if an email bounces and you're not sure why, this will give you information in the email header to tell you which notice ID it is and which template ID it is, and that can help you troubleshoot. That can help some of us troubleshoot the notices for other people. And I have people at all 50 of my libraries. This is just, I might as well be telling them that dogs have wings, and it's going to make as much sense to them, and it might be true or it might not. They'll never know. So, okay, this is you. Uh-ohs and still wanting.
Still waiting.
Still waiting.
Yes.
Still waiting.
So the new templates functionality for reports introduced a single delivery type print and changed the subject name. This might have been, I don't know if this was in the special sauce for Whitewater or what, but when we got the preview for the templates, it said file name, and we were only given the print section. But when we got the upgrade in our test server, it looks like everything else now. And it has all the formats, and if you click on print, it doesn't say file name, it says subject. And so it went back to a little more confusing. I thought, awesome, they're finally formatting these.
It's some kind of reversion.
That makes sense.
And you thought those might be the possible culprits.
Yeah, one of these, I think, these came on my radar when I was trying to research why this might be. We're not sure why that happened, or like I said, it could have been something in Whitewater's implementation of an earlier version. But these came out, and these might be interfering with it. I don't know.
I don't know either. But that's why, probably why Jason was confused, that it was print when he did it in his production server, but then when he did it in his test server, it was different, so.
All right, and then we have a bud 13498 email templates used for printing slips. We still have cases where,
yeah, this is the hold slip still has this issue where if you put the hold slip is only printed, but the template has to go in email.
yeah, you'd think it would go in print because it's a slip. So we're still waiting for them to iron those issues out.
And I think there are 4 or 5 of those that are print only, but you have to put the template in the email section, and that's confusing.
36588 add a template toolkit field picker to the notice editor. So we're making a lot of progress on the template toolkits, but still, if you change your defaults or you're installing new and you get those notices that have the template toolkit information in there, the left side is still the Hungry Alligators implementation. So we're still like this. Yeah, so if you click on these, it's going to just insert the angled brackets and not the template toolkit. So we're working towards that. A lot of progress has been made, but this is still something that's going to be probably another phase down the road here.
Yeah, and one of the big issues with this is there are some notices and slips where you cannot use the Hungry Alligator syntax, but you can still use this picker on the left-hand side to insert those in there. So that's what worries me about that is there are some people that are going to get confused by the fact that they think they're putting that data in there and the data is going nowhere because those don't work in that particular notice.
I've done that myself.
I've never done that.
15277 add template toolkit syntax for slips and notices to the editor.
This I put up an example of too. So this is what a template toolkit notice looks like in the editor in the notices and slips tool. Wouldn't it be nice if it had this nice code mirror style highlighting of the syntax parts? And I think one of the reasons that this probably hasn't been implemented yet is that Code Mirror is a plugin. It's a JavaScript plugin that's added to Koha that the developers pushed into Koha, and nobody's written the template toolkit syntax for Code Mirror yet.
That'd be awesome.
So that might take a little bit more work, but it'd be nice to have the line numbers and highlighting and that kind of information in when you're writing a report.
30657, make patron attributes available via template toolkit and notices.
Yeah, so one of the great things about the Hungry Alligators is you can put those attributes. They're right there in the picker, And in Template Toolkit, you can add patron extended borrower attributes into the templates, but it requires a monumental amount of work. It's like you've got to tell it to use author. Yeah, it's just a lot of work. It goes beyond what most librarians are capable of doing. The only reason I was able to figure it out is because I asked Lucas at Bywater for a couple of things where they use the attributes, and he was able to do those for me, and then I was able to use those as examples of how to do different ones.
Do you have examples or notes somewhere that people can refer to?
Not good ones, that's why I didn't add more.
Okay.
But maybe we can do a video on that later.
Yeah.
Not today though.
Okay.
And this is one that you and I, when we were writing these slides, we had this one on our list, and then when I figured out that it was coming, this is the one that we were talking about earlier to click copy the default template back. So that one is actually, that one's fixed
In progress. So
in 2411. So not in 2405. We're still waiting for it in 2405. So it really is still belongs on this slide. But next year we'll be going, there was at least one success. So one of the things that I complained about a lot last year is that there isn't a lot of documentation. So we've gotten to the part where those are all the things that are coming in 2311 and 2405. The things that we can do to keep moving things forward is we can go to the wiki and we can add things to the notices and slips library. And I did a bunch of work on the wiki, and I added a category for notices and slips. Nobody had ever done this before. So if you go to this link or scan the QR code, it will actually take you to the category page, and all of the stuff about notices and slips on the wiki is right there in one spot. So you don't have to go and search. I particularly don't encourage you to search, just go to the wiki and search for template toolkit. That's not a great idea because there's a whole bunch of template toolkit documentation on the wiki that doesn't relate to notices and slips. And there's one page in particular about template toolkit plugins that Barton Chittenden started, and it didn't get finished before Barton left and moved on to a different job. And so there's a lot of like placeholder data there that isn't useful. So I don't recommend searching for template toolkit. If you're interested in notices and slips, all this stuff is here. And if you create new pages on the wiki that have information about notices and slips, add the notices and slip categories to those pages, and they'll end up on this page too. And these are some of the deficiencies we mentioned last time. So documentation is getting better. The community has really done a lot to make the documentation better. The notices and slips library still needs template toolkit examples. And the insert list, that field picker on the left-hand side, those are the things that we talked about last time. And
the picker is going to be the big hurdle, and then just some basic documentation on understanding the logic in there, because it's more than just picking fields. The template toolkit allows you some logic, and that's going to be important to understand as well.
Yeah, that is actually one of the really great things about template toolkit is like the auto renewal notice was the first notice I was aware of that uses template toolkit extensively. And that's because you can't put the logic of did this get renewed? This thing got renewed, so we need to send a yes, this got renewed notice to the patron. And this auto renewal didn't work, and so we need to send a notice to the patron saying this book wasn't renewed. And so you have those if-then statements in template toolkit that you can't do in the old syntax. And that's one of the really great things about template toolkit. You can create a notice, and if certain conditions are met, the notice will be completely empty and no notice will be sent. Or if other conditions are met, you'll get one notice, and if different conditions are met, you'll get a different notice.
Yeah, we've done past videos on use of template toolkit as well with, like, for example, we'll break out the hold slips because we differentiate between whether a hold is staying put in this library or it's being transferred. We tell it to look more like a transfer slip if it's going to another library. So that's one instance that we do that. And I've leveraged our hold slips even further for ILLs.
Right, so, right. Bugs related to template toolkit notices. So 34472 calls for the removal of the hungry alligators. That's the one that, like I said, got me started last year. It said, let's get rid of all these and completely replace it with something that we have almost zero documentation for. The second one,
This is the omnibus.
well, actually 34472 calls for a reference guide, and the other one, 15279, is the one that says, let's get rid of hungry alligators completely.
Yeah, so if you want to know what's generally going on in the template toolkit arena, the omnibus on 34472 is the one to check out. It kind of gives you the whole picture of what's going on.
Right, there are a whole bunch of bugs under there that have already been fixed, and there's a bunch that are still waiting to be worked on. And some more. So 34579, separate notice message languages from the installed languages. This was filed by somebody from Finland, and what they really want, right now, if you install like the Spanish language pack into Koha, you'll have notices and slip templates in English and notice and slip templates in Spanish. And what they want out of this bug is a way to incorporate different dialects, because there are some of those European countries where the people in one town have almost a complete, it's still Finnish, but in the other town, one over, there's almost a completely different dialect. And so they want the ability to deal with that, and that's what that bug deals with.
It's all Greek to me.
Of course it is. 29335 relates to a session checking slip. So if you check a bunch of stuff in and you're generating that check-in slip, the idea is that, if you go in the morning and you return 10 books in the morning, it generates a slip with 10 things on it. And if you go back at 3 in the afternoon and you check in 5 more things, that same check-in slip will now have 15 things on it, because it's all the check-ins during the whole day. And so this would break that up into different sessions.
Yeah, we actually did a video on
Check out the issue slip is the same. The issue quick slip is the same way.
Yep.
And then this one I would really like. There are only a handful of notices in Koha where you have a preview option where you can put in, I think it's the hold slip. You can put in a biblio number and a patron ID number, and it'll generate a preview of what that slip will look like. It'd be nice if every notice and slips template you could do a preview for.
Yeah.
That's particularly good for testing, because right now, if I want to test a change to an overdue notice, I have to, like an emailed overdue notice, I have to make the changes, and I can't go in there on the crawl job. I've got to wait till the next day. So it'd be nice to have previews for those so you could see what the changes are. If Jason talked about how he does things in small steps. That's the only way to do. If you're doing really small steps with overdue notices, it could take you a year to go through enough steps to get a good result. Things we'd still like to see.
Template toolkit, old slip logic shouldn't be necessary. So this goes back to last year. We talked about this a little bit, and the video that I talked about how I'm using template toolkit to break apart old slips so that it knows the difference between what's staying in the library and what's actually being transferred to another library. Right now, we have to distinguish the two, because there's certain information that we want on that slip for transport, and there's certain information that we want in-house. And right now, holds that are moving to another library are not being treated in the slips like they're traveling.
Yeah, the out-of-the-box default slip just says hold at this at library code for this patron, and if it's not your library, then you've got essentially a transfer slip that says keep it here. And if you are transferring it, then you're sending out the courier with a slip on it that has the patron's confidential information.
Right. The courier doesn't need to know anything about who it's going to end up going to in the end. They just need to know what library they need to get it to.
And then the next one was yours too. Template toolkit logic shouldn't be necessary to tame the overdue notices.
Right. And so we're using template toolkit to solve an issue where, you know, we use several different formats. We use print. We did use print. We use SMS, phone, and email. And right now, when you're setting up your overdue notices, which is handled completely different than the rest of your notices, if you give all those options for your overdue notices, it's going to try all of those delivery methods at once. And so we have to put in some template toolkit logic in our notices so that if one of those exists, it's not going to try the other. So right now we're having to work around that, and it would be nice if the overdue notices worked more like the rest of our notices.
Yeah, and that's actually refers to the next one, and that's and I missed an opportunity here to put a screenshot in. So we could have had 101 slides. But the overdue notice should be included in the patron messaging table on the patron details page. That it'd be nice if the overdue notices were part of that table too.
Yeah.
And one of the things about the notice editor and that list of options, the field picker for the hungry alligator syntax on the left-hand side, in some of those notices, some of those fields are visible in the field picker, but they don't work in that notice because you don't need, for a transfer from one library, even for a basic transfer slip, there's no patron information. So if you put patron fields in there, they're not going to do anything. So it'd be nice if the field picker, if the eventual template toolkit field picker only showed you the fields that are available in that notice.
Smarter picker.
Yeah, that sounds good. And this is one of the things I'll say is everyone here should ask for better documentation. If you don't think the documentation is good, ask for better. And everybody who has a custom template toolkit notice should go to the wiki, create an account, and add those notices and slips to the notices and slips library. There has been a lot of changes. There have been 14 changes to the notices and slips library in the last year.
This is one area we could do more sharing on. We have a lot of sharing in jQuery and SQL, but the templates for our notices and slips, we could do better in.
I want to see everybody's notices and slips. So those are the things we'd like to see. And then we've got some more, and then we've got the notices and slips survey. If you talk about the next slide, I'll make the survey results visible on that survey, and we can maybe look at it, because look, we're finishing early, even though we started this next slide. Thanks for putting up with us for 4 years. And then the slides that Jason recommended to get us up to 100 are, this is the end.
That's all.
So I will end that survey and make the results available as quickly as I can. It might not be immediately, but I'll do my best.
Okay, so ladies,
And then people,
100 slides. I'll have some time left.
Fancy doodles.
awesome. I guess we should ask, does anybody have any questions? We wowed them all with crazy.
I'm not going to pay the camera on this. Sorry.
What's a question and more, David Nind is working on a template toolkit reference guide. There's a bug number for it that I was just trying to find.
34472.
Thank you, 34472. And if that's something you'd be interested in helping with, or that you're just really interested in, it might be good to comment on that, because it's been a little while since there's been much movement on it.
I don't want to help other people. I want other people to help me. I'll have to find that and see what David's got going, so. David's a great guy to work with. I don't know how many of you know him, but he's from New Zealand. And he doesn't even work at a library. He works on koha all the time, so David's awesome. Any other questions or comments, or does everybody just want me to stop talking so you can get cake? Cake. Everybody here says cake, so to all of you, those of you watching online, I guess I'm the one that's been monitoring the YouTube live comments, so I don't have any idea if any of the online people have any questions or comments.
Both Brendans said hi to each other.
Who?
Both Brendans.
Oh, two Brendans said hello, okay. Well, thanks everybody, and if you have any questions for Christopher, I just asked.